Good afternoon from Dallas, Texas, where we're at the Hilton Anatole for EarthX 2026 and our 2026 EarthX Climate Tech Prize Finals as part of the 2026 eCapital Summit. Let's get a big round of applause for everybody at EarthX and everyone who's here today. Let's get some energy. We've had hundreds of people from around the world ascend on Dallas, Texas. Everything from investors to industry leaders, innovators, innovation ecosystem leaders, everyone that is working to solve real sustainability and conservation industry-related challenges and investment challenges. We've had more than 250 companies apply to be a part of our innovator cohort this year. And over the last 10 years, EarthX has, I think, had more than 700 innovators, Megan?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, my name is Vikram Agrawal. I am the Senior Director of EarthX Capital, and this is?
Megan Steiner, EarthX Capital Coordinator.
And we are part of the EarthX Capital team, and our whole mission is how do we catalyze more impact as it relates to sustainability and conservation-related investments and industry innovation across all industries from water, agriculture, built environment, sports, consumer products, energy. And we just want to get as many people as possible to actually solve real challenges. So, our Climate Tech Prize Finals were sponsored by Mass Challenge, which is a leading accelerator program around the world with different programs, and we're really grateful for their sponsorship to help with the $10,000 cash prize. So let's do a big just thank you to Mass Challenge. So Megan, why don't you tell everybody about the little process that we went through to select these great 4 finalists and then talk a little bit more about the semifinalists.
Yeah, so as Vikram mentioned, we had over 250 companies apply to attend the eCapital Summit, of which our strategic partners selected the top 11 that they believe should be able to pitch for the opportunity to win the $10,000 cash prize. Yesterday, during our investment forum, these companies pitched in front of our audience. They had 3 minutes to give these lightning round pitches, and our audience voted live on our app to decide which 4 would advance to today's finals.
And before we tell who our semifinalists were, our audience included some of the largest family offices in the world, a former head of state, other senior policymakers from the United States government, from Texas and elsewhere. It was a pretty high quality audience, so I think we had some pretty smart people in the room.
That we sure did.
So tell us, who are our semifinalists?
So our semifinalists included 11 companies from all different industry backgrounds like circularity, oceans, water, and the like. We had ATS Energy, Brint Tech, Chakra TechWorks, Downland, Illuven, Mermaid Energy, Navia Energy, Pinpoint Irrigation, Silvis Materials, Terminus Industrials, and Turbo Power Semiconductor.
Those are all amazing companies. But from that, our audience picked 4 finalists, which you guys are going to be excited to hear pitch. So before we go into their pitches, I wanted to introduce our very challenging and very smart judges who are going to be asking them some pretty fun questions. So just from a format standpoint, each innovator will have around up to 5 minutes. And if they choose, they will then have maybe even extra time if they choose to pitch for less, because they'll have at least 7 minutes of Q&A from our very strict judges who are industry and investment leaders from around this country. So let's start with our first judge, is Will Clayton. He's an investor and advisor based in Dallas, Texas. Next, Alan Gelwick, who's the Executive Vice President and partner at Lockton and the co-founder of Lockton's Texas practice out of Houston. David Nguyen, who's the Vice President and Senior Commercial Relationship Manager from Wells Fargo's Technology and Investment Banking, Venture Banking practice, and has seen, I think he probably sees thousands of companies a year. And definitely last but not least is our sponsor, Michelle Williams, the VP and Head of Strategy for Texas for Mass Challenge. Let's give it a round of applause for our judges. Now, do we want our judges to do softball questions or pretty challenging questions? All right, so I think you guys have your work cut out for you. So let's start with our 4 finalists. And congratulations for you guys.
So we have ATS Energy, Chakra TechWorks, Downland, and Mermaid Energy.
All right.
We'll be pitching today.
I think you guys are sick of hearing me talk. Let's get down to the real business. Let's have ATS Energy come up and present.
Good afternoon, Jonathan Candy with ATS Energy. About 60% of industrial waste heat, coming from all types of heat, but that about 60% of it goes up into the air. So think about this way. For every dollar of energy input going into industrial processes, 60 cents is escaping up into the air. For businesses, that's millions of dollars. So why aren't we doing something with this? This is good thermal energy. And so when we look at this, the world has been dealing with these for the past 140 years the same way, turbines. We put steam, we put something else through the turbine, and we're able to generate power. Well, turbines have a lot of problems. They're big, they're noisy, they aren't necessarily CapEx friendly. They have certainly a O&M burden. Often you have to hire a power plant engineer if you're going to put one of these in place. So at ATS, we developed the solid state generator. The solid state generator is made of a semiconductor material that ATS developed. We've built that semiconductor material and put it into this cartridge. Those cartridges are then put inside of a shipping container and put between hot and cold plates. When we take industrial waste heat and we run it across the top side of the cartridge and just cool water on the bottom side of that cartridge, we generate electricity. How much? About one shipping container is about a megawatt of electricity, and we do so with absolutely zero moving parts. So we don't have an O&M burden. Now, this works off the Seebeck effect. That was discovered in the 1800s. We didn't do a lot with this for a while. We actually, as a human species, the best we've ever seen is actually in space, which is about 7% to 9% thermally efficient. Here on planet Earth, where we're grounded, the best we've gotten in 2010 was 2.5% thermal efficiency. Today, ATS is at 13.9% thermal efficiency. So that's taking 1 megawatt of thermal energy. We create 139 kilowatts of electricity. So when you think about this, where we've gone from here, we have taken this, we did a DOE industrial technology validation. We've taken this and won an Earthshot prize. Then we brought in Deloitte to make sure our supply chain was solid. And then lastly, we've continued to innovate. We now have a patent that will bring us into 22% thermal efficiency. We have a goal of 30 by 30, 30% thermal efficiency by 2030. Then we got to work. We started looking at how are we going to go to market. We found a number of incredible use cases. I say use cases instead of industries because some of these span across them. So we have developed all of these different ways of which to approach the marketplace. If you take turbines, for example, those exist at compressor stations in the oil and gas space here in Texas. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these across the United States alone. So if you look at just capturing 5% of only 3 of those use cases, we're talking about a $30 billion perspective of ability to actually drive revenue for ATS Energy and do some amazing impact. So from an impact perspective, because we can scale so well, we believe we can actually stop a gigaton of carbon by 2050. That's like parking every car in the United States for 2 full years, kind of a big deal. Then from a circularity perspective, we have the ability to take the bismuth and tellurium, which is what makes up our semiconductor, we can actually upcycle that material. So if we deploy a 13% thermal efficiency cartridge today, we can pull that cartridge out, swap it, and utilize that same material from the original cartridge to make a net new improved cartridge. We have a team that has delivered over $5 billion in post-exit growth and IPOs. We've assembled a team that knows how to scale this business and drive this successfully. We have the folks going across multiple different industries, including we recently hired Edward Ganja over there, and he comes from Shell with 35 years of experience in material science. We are raising a $9 million round on a $27 million post-money valuation. And we see this, none of our growth model considers the ability of how well we can scale across these industries. It's really just individual sales, but those are going to be highly repeatable. So from our standpoint, we built a solid state system. It is truly a game changer. We've de-risked this, and we are profitable on our first unit sale, which we made in November of last year, and we expect our second to come in the next 30 to 60 days. We have red lines to do. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Jonathan. To start off with, a couple of questions for you. I'd love to know what your background is and the team's background, and then I'm really interested in the scale at which you've demonstrated this so far. If
Yes.
it's been commercial, operational, lab scale, it's certainly an impressive technology.
Thank you. The team we have today, my background, I've been in the startup world for, I don't want to say it. It's my 5th startup. I have an IPO and a unicorn under my belt. Our CEO and our chief operating officer both have those same types of backgrounds as well. We actually came in to commercialize this when we won the Earthshot Prize. Prince William told our then CEO, time to get this into the market. Enough just R&D work. He wasn't an R&D guy and went back and said, had made that hard decision. I need to bring in a different team for this next stage of growth. And so he brought us on in. From a standpoint of demonstration, we did a 15 kilowatt unit at the Wholesome Cement plant in Alpena, Michigan. And the only difference between a 15 kilowatt and a 1 megawatt is the number of cartridges. We did that, and that's where the DOE came on in and did the industrial technology validation.
Jonathan, I'd like to ask a couple follow-on questions to that. At the demonstration plant that you did at Wholesome, is there any continuing opportunity in that particular use case?
We did not. It was never designed to be that. We had a very specific time period where we were going to operate this unit for the DOE itself. They had their PhDs on site that entire period of time. Additionally, that site is the largest cement plant in the world at the time. I think China has now built one slightly larger. They have a humongous heat waste boiler and very large turbines, multiple megawatts. They actually interrupted their operation to allow us to utilize that steam for the purpose of this industrial demonstration. So we actually made them less efficient for a period of time because we were actually disrupting their operation for this.
Have you quantified any of the potential carbon credits, whether voluntary or federal, that this would?
Yeah, we certainly have, when we develop proposals for our customers, I tend to avoid making a carbon credit a part of an ROI structure because they can be voluntary. The market fluctuates a good bit. You usually look around, if you're looking at voluntary, somewhere in that $25 to $40 per ton.
But Wholesome's an example of a company that globally is actually very focused on that.
They very much are. In fact, our next unit that I expect to be closing here pretty shortly is actually in lime manufacturing. It's a very hard to abate industry. That company has around 35 lime plants around the globe, average of 3 lime kilns per plant. So this is our first one. That's 90 megawatts of potential power inside that one company that we could generate. So highly repeatable. This is their first foray.
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you so much for sharing your pitch with us. My questions are centered around really your sales cycle. So you showed that you have about an 18-month to 24-month runway. Well, I guess I have 2 questions. One, I'm curious about the length of your sales cycle because I'm assuming like the change management convincing takes a little bit of time. And then also, maybe this is the preface to that question, are you selling to like existing plants or new builds?
I'll divide that question up. So sales cycle, from, I guess the way I look at it right now is so far, I think I'm the first person to ever sell a solid-state generator. So at that point, we really got started last year in April of last year to actually commercialize. So, at that point, we were actually called Advanced Thermal Voltaic Systems. Nobody could say it, so I created a DBA for ATS Energy. That was the first piece. Then we really got to work in talking to customers. Our first unit was sold in November. So based upon a data perspective, right, probably an 8-month scenario. The reality is I think it's about a year to 18 months to actually build something through the funnel consistently. And once again, when I look at that, that's for a net new customer in a net new industry that they have nothing to look at and verify. So we have a compressor station in Massachusetts in our funnel right now, very large oil and gas company. Because we're modular, we can generate off of their Solar 70 turbine a full megawatt of additional electricity behind the meter. They only need 450 kilowatts. Because we're modular, less cartridges. Once we have that in place, compressor stations, and every company that wants to be first to be second will kind of be able to point at that and say, oh, they're using it there. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll use it. I think you'll see those sales timeframes drop considerably. That's kind of been what I've seen in my historical perspective. You had a second part and I forgot it.
New builds or existing?
Oh, all existing so far? Nope, that's not true. Our first one that we sold is actually going behind the meter at a data center where they'll be burning clean hydrogen burner driving our unit. That is a net new site in the southwestern United States where the land has just been acquired. So we actually don't have to deploy that until 2028. So, but the vast majority of the funnel is not new.
Hey, Jonathan, thank you for your presentation. My question is going to be around more about your attraction. I think you mentioned that you've had your first sale in the commercial space in 2025. Can you speak more about your strategic partners that you currently have, any existing customers in your pipeline, current revenue size, and what kind of funding you guys have received so far?
Yeah, so we have in the past year, from just getting started with commercialization, we built a $320 million funnel. I'd say about a little over a third of that is in the oil and gas space. Highly repeatable, as I mentioned. There's a good bit of cement in there. There's steel. There's rolled aluminum. There's mining. A lot of waste heat and mining processes. Even sulfuric acid plants. So you have chemical plants in sulfuric acid. Interestingly, and this is actually several use cases. There's actually a lot of different places where the processes, they have to heat something up, and then afterwards they pay to cool it down. I actually can take that heat, cool their process, and create electricity at the same time. So those are kind of the double wins.
Awesome. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you for your time.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much, John. Our next company to present will be Chakra TechWorks. Please welcome them up.
Happy Earth Day, everybody. Ooh. All right, so before I start, a question for everybody. How many of you have ever been concerned about plastic waste or microplastics that you have ever seen around yourself? Most everybody. Those who have not raised hand, I'll talk to them afterwards. You have a right to be concerned because plastics ends up in landfill or in oceans. Less than 10% of plastics across the globe are recycled and ends up in landfill and wreaking havoc to our planet. But it's not even about our planet anymore because microplastics that come out of these plastics are wreaking havoc to human health and being linked to cardiovascular disease, dementia, among other things. And the fact is that we are ingesting more than a credit card worth of microplastics every single week. California and other states and even other countries have taken a note and introduced landmark laws banning single-use plastic. But the problem is that there is no plastic alternative that behaves at scale and or performs. So that's what we are solving at Chakra Tech. Chakra Tech, we are reinventing plastics, building biodegradable plastics that disappear in less than 6 months, leaving behind no waste, no microplastics. And they only degrade under specific soil and marine environment. So it's not that they will disintegrate in your hand. Our stack of innovation centers around these microbial platform where they're able to utilize methanol, which is derived from greenhouse gases or other waste feedstocks, into biopolymers through proprietary metabolic engineering systems, which is 5 times more efficient than any known system, enabling 100% recycling efficiency, enabling a carbon negative fermentation process. But the most cool part that I really like about our pipeline is this machine learning paradigm where we can make tunable plastics. We can make tunable polymers to match conventional plastics in properties, completing the circle of carbon or the chakra of carbon. This enables us to go faster, cheaper, better, significant reduction in carbon emissions, and a 10x faster R&D cycle, meaning that we can go to market real fast. Plastics, as you know, is a massive industry. We are focusing on flexible packaging as our beachhead. Quite like Saran Wrap, but for applications in specialty applications like medical, pharma, naval, and food, through a B2B and licensing play. So this is our go-to-market strategy. We're starting with specialty biomaterials so that we can start with low volume, high premium. Eventually, we want to move into food and packaging. That's our expansion play, and global scaling through licensing. But the timeline has already moved because we have had inbound interest from 6 Fortune 500 companies interested in licensing as early as in our lab scale. So we make it the material at a gram level, but we have tremendous interest from partners across the globe. We've also picked up a number of awards on the way. We were given the Innovation Recognition Award from the California Senate. We were named top 10 global biopolymer startups. But the most satisfying part has been validation in form of paid partnerships from multiple partners, including the Fortune 500 partnership that I mentioned. Our team is scientists and engineers, chemical engineers with combined experience of more than 100 years in bringing technology from lab to market. I'm a PhD chemical engineer with 20 years of experience across chemical engineering to biology. And plastic waste is something deeply personal to me because plastic waste during monsoon season in the small town where I grew up would flood the community. And this is a story not unique to me, but 200 million other people. We are also fortunate to have, backed by advisory committee, Jeff, who has done successful exits, and Jim Lambright, the former CEO of US Exports and Imports Bank, who has also led the $700 billion bailout package for the US financial crisis. So we are fortunate to have a tremendous leader guiding our merger and acquisition strategy with these companies that we're working with. So we currently are on the bench scale. We have demonstrated a proof of concept. We are working on provisional patents right now, as well as looking at scaling the medical grade polymer. We are working on the pre-seed round of $1.5 million, going towards strain optimization as well as scale up for our operations. Plastics and microplastics are a defining crisis for our generation. Our planet deserves better, our health deserves better, and our future deserves better. Hope you'll join us in our journey in making plastics disappear, and I invite you in joining our mission. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ravi. That's very interesting. I want to get into some of the economics, which were glazed over here. You know, to get this to commercial scale, what are you imagining in terms of CapEx when you're going up against some competition like Danimer that have deeper pockets for something like this? And then what do marginal economics look like at scale, including what are your feedstocks and supply for this?
So excellent question. So Danimer Scientific uses agricultural feedstock, soybean oil. We are proposing methanol. So methanol already beats the pricing by at least 33% for the eventual scaling. So that's at the feedstock level. You also mentioned what kind of CapEx are we looking at. To build your own facility, you're looking at easy $70 to $100 million at least. So this is where we come in. We want to take a capital asset light approach. We want to work with contract manufacturers to get started. That's part one, but we are also very fortunate, and I cannot disclose the name of the Fortune 500 partner that we're working with. Think about top 5 largest fermentation company. They want to work with us on scale, but they don't have the innovation. We got the innovation line, makes for an excellent partnership to overcome some of those barriers. Thank you so much for the question.
Marginal economics?
So unit economics, right. So unit economics compared to as I mentioned, so Danimer, roughly $7 to $8 a kilo. We can be about $5 a kilo. This is still quite a bit high compared to if you think about polypropylene or traditional plastics, which sells for $1 a kilo. That's why when we come into the specialty grade, we are looking at $10,000 a kilo. So what we don't have for scale, we can go for high premium, and nobody else in the world can make that polymer. So that gives us the initial beachhead and way to succeed.
This is really interesting. I'm curious about as you look at the IP side of it. You have provisional patents. How does that actually look for you at this moment? And then the follow-on is, what do you see your greatest challenge in this, from here to where you need to go?
So the first question regarding patents. So the flywheel of innovation that we have built, actually we can generate, so we have already 10 plus model organisms, 7 of additional isolates that we have built in-house, and we can predict all the conventional plastics through our machine learning pipeline. That gives us a permutation of more than 300 plus systems that we can generate, but we cannot keep up. We cannot protect it, and it doesn't seem like it's a good idea to just cast a wider net. So our strategy is we start with trade secret to begin with. With the medical grade, we are going immediately because the company has also expressed interest in building, their CVC arm is interested and they can scale. So that's what the set we are focusing initially on, and then as we expand towards broader commodity market, we build our strategy as we go. So that's the first part to the question. Can you remind me what the
second is? What is your greatest challenge?
The greatest challenge. So actually, for last 2 years, we were primarily focused on commodity side, carbon negative biopolymers. That's not a good value prop anymore. So the commodity thing commodity play would still take a longer time. We are not quite ready for that yet. So we have to wait that out. We have to get cash flow positive and reinvest. That's the only path that I see for that to succeed. That's a large market eventually, but I think we just have to wait. It's a waiting game for us now because we are a bit ahead on the timing curve.
So the cash flow positive is actually a great pivot to my question. I'm curious about when I was looking at your team, you're starting with marine and pharma. And you mentioned that you already have a contract with the naval, but I didn't see anyone on your team that's like heavy on the sales side or that comes from the pharma industry. So I'm just curious how you plan to break into that sales cycle to like get to cash flow positive.
Yeah. See, I come from a very small town. My mom used to sell clothes. One lesson that she was like, I don't care about your research. We need to get cash flow positive every day, right? That's what she teaches me. So we already were cash flow positive in our initial period. That was through consulting. We are consulting to these Fortune 500 companies. They have come to us. This is inbound interest from 6 Fortune 500 companies. So whatever we sell, so right now we're able to produce gram amount. They're paying us the top dollar to sell that. So that's how we are getting started. And this is something that's built in our ethics. We have to get cash flow positive at every time. Every single gram we make, gram, 10 gram, 100 gram, kilo, we have that locked down. That's a primary focus for us. And then eventually, then we have hundreds of millions of dollars. But you got to start small.
Hey, Ravi, thank you for the presentation. My question is going to be primarily around your proprietary stack here. There's a lot of biodegradable plastics companies out there. What kind of makes you kind of stand out from those competitions that you guys have? Is there more around like the crops you guys use or farmers that you guys have supply chains with, or what does that kind of look like from your end?
So I think excellent question. A lot of people have tried different things, failed. The biggest challenge, actually, this is an insight from 300 plus customer discovery interviews. A couple of them have even worked with those larger companies like Danimer Scientific. The materials don't perform at scale. So that's the single biggest limitation that other people have that we are solving on. We are reverse engineering, so that's one. We have been able to integrate different workflows, as I mentioned, machine learning to quickly tell how fast can we build the material. So that's one. The other part is that biomanufacturing stack that I mentioned. So we have the highest carbon utilizing microbes. People are at about 20% efficiency. We are pushing to, even if let's say we can't hit 100%, we're at about 90% at the best. So this is a real advantage for us. And the third is in feedstock. So what's the feedstock of future? If people are going to move away from fossil fuel as feedstocks, which is an argument, also agricultural feedstocks, which not every country can use, as you can imagine, people have large populations to feed. The feedstock for future is methanol, and that's the other play that comes into for us. So it's integration of these together that we are doing very well, plus the customer discovery. We take the customer interview very seriously, and we build the features accordingly.
I have one follow-up question.
Yeah.
Methanol is not hedgeable. So getting the methanol is actually, I'd like to know more about how you're actually going to get it.
Right now we're able to use both sugar and methanol, but we are also working with partners like India, which is pushing on the clean methanol economy. But we don't even need clean methanol at this point. We can start with gray methanol. So there are a variety of supply chain considerations at this point. Thank you so much.
I may have to start taking my checkbook out and start writing some investments myself. So our next company is Downland. Let's welcome her up.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Jessie Resch, rhymes with fresh. I'm the founder and CEO of Downland. Downland helps farmers and landowners pass down their land to the next generation. We are building fintech for business succession. When I first started this work, I cold called hundreds of landowners every week for 6 months. And I learned that they are worried about what happens to their legacy. And that's because $24 trillion of farmland will change hands. The question is how and to whom. That's 1.5 million farms, about 70% of the farms in the US, that are going to change hands whether the farmers want to or not. The average age of a farmer in the US and in many places globally is about 58 years old. That means they're facing these really tough and impending decisions, but the succession planning process today is expensive and complicated, and it's hard to know where to start. And Downland is solving that problem. We're building financial services software that helps farmers do the 3 things they need to pass their land down from one generation to the next. We help the younger generation and the older generation get ready, match, and transact. Our MVP today helps young and beginning farmers build their business plan. The business plan that they want to run in the future is the succession plan for the next generation. Those folks can match based on those people and plans, and ultimately building to use voice-driven AI technology to generate the contracts needed to make that transaction move forward. Those successors become entrepreneurs, and that's how we do well and do good. With no additional requirements, young people want to be managing and stewarding land in a more sustainable and regenerative way. 83% of aspiring young farmers and beginning farmers want to use soil health and regenerative practices. They just need land to do it. And by the way, as they take on those businesses and look to grow their wealth through entrepreneurship, through acquisition, we enable business ownership in USDA rural zones and can build on that impact. We make money when we turn those conversations into connections. We've generated about $55,000 in lifetime revenue today at an average order value of $875. Customers are paying for that matching transaction today, and we're building out our MVP to build out that platform and unlock recurring revenue in the future. We've grown our waitlist to over 9,000 farmers and beginning aspiring farmers by meeting them in the places and through the people they already know and trust. Things like going into those rural communities, shaking hands at events, lots of word of mouth conversation that's happening around the work we're doing, and partnering with organizations that farmers and landowners already trust so that we can enable them as we build out that platform to have these conversations directly. That conversation to contract goes way beyond the farm. Over the next several decades, the silver tsunami is coming, and many businesses will be changing hands. And Downland is set up to help facilitate that transaction, both with those young farmers, small-scale farms today, and other small businesses here and globally in the future. We have got the best team in the field. The pun is fully intended. Thank you for indulging me in it. We bring over 100 years of agriculture and technology experience. I am the CEO. I have 15 years of financial services experience, 6 years in startup executive roles. My last company hit number 10 in financial services on the Inc. 5000 list. I'm joined by experts in agriculture, finance, ranching, soil health, legal and real estate, and many more expertise areas relevant to what we're doing, including Zach Deschanel, the former Farm Service Agency Administrator. And we're ready to dig in. We've already secured institutional investment and have room for a few more angel checks in the work that we're doing as we work to scale up our MVP, build out the features that our customers have told us they want, and take this to market. Thank you so much, y'all. Again, I'm Jessie Resch with Downland.
Hi, Jesse. Thank you for your presentation. So I'm going to kick this off for us. You're actually in a very niche market here. So I know you mentioned a couple times on your go-to-market strategy, but how do you scale from here?
Yeah, I think there's a few ways that Downland can scale, both doing what we are doing in international markets. I had the opportunity to go on a trade mission to the UK last year. We've talked with other farm and soil health experts that are dealing with this succession problem in France, Australia, the UK. So this is very much a global problem that we can be set up to solve.
Thank you so much, Jesse. My question actually piggybacks on David. So you mentioned you have 9,000 on your wait list. I have two questions. One, I'm curious what the percentage of that is aspiring farmers, because I can see a lot of people being excited about that versus actual farmers that are looking to pass down. That's my first question.
Yeah, and I would divide that into thirds. About 1/3 of that are farmers who are looking for successors or succession plans to be put in the place, people we've met at events and through word of mouth. I would say another third is the white collar professional who's looking to touch grass, who aspires to maybe retiring on a hobby farm or homestead someday and doesn't quite know where to start. And the other third are beginning farmers who have some agricultural experience or other outdoor work experience. There are lots of farm nonprofits, about almost 30,000 across the country, where folks are coming out of these programs. Veterans often come out of this outdoor work, outdoor firefighters who don't have a great opportunity in their career to proceed. And so that's an opportunity for us to partner, add people who are great at doing the field skills with the business skills so they're ready to be successors and entrepreneurs.
And that was actually going to be my second question. It seems like there's a lot of upskilling that's required, which is expensive. You're paying for people's labor and time. So I'm curious, are you selling this as a SaaS product? Or are you
Yes.
selling it like a consultant? You're providing education and upskilling for these potential farmers?
Yeah, our platform is built on the 4 pillars that qualify for the USDA Farm and Loan Program, one of which is management training and readiness. We are not the people who should teach you how to farm, but we are connected with many people who are and can be the business acumen side alongside many of those partners that we've been in conversation with.
Wow. I'm frightened. All you've done is completely frighten me with the status of what's happening to the global farming community. But I'm also curious, since it's such a huge issue for everyone, there must be sort of governmental entities that must be thinking about this as well, and or large entities that would see this as an opportunistic moment in the space. And so what does the competition for you look like in terms of competing against people that have money and resources to simply be opportunistic, and then align that with a $75,000 sales budget?
And I think that's a great question. The national security issue that I don't think we talk about enough is that we haven't been able to grow enough food to feed ourselves in this country for the last 2 or 3 years. We've become a net importer of food. And so keeping these small farms online is a crucial part of our national security in the future. In terms of continuing to connect and innovate here, we are unique in that we are farmer focused and farmer first. So other competitors in this space, the Legal Karma, Legal Zoom, Trust and Will, those folks are good at estate planning, not so good at doing it for the complexities of farms and farm assets and the differentiation of things like mineral rights and water rights and deed restrictions that you have to be mindful of. The other piece that we are uniquely suited to is connecting people to other opportunities to keep their farm a farm over the long term. As they think about what is the goal for my farm and how do I take that into the future, we've had early conversations with groups that need access to land, sustainable fuel developers, ingredient developers, and who face difficulties getting into those rural communities and making those connections. And I think that's a place where we differentiate, is not ignoring the fact that this is a people-first business and being really willing to show up in those communities in and through the channel partners they already know and trust. Think the Nebraska Cattlemen's Association, Georgia Cattlemen's Association. They are coming to my company and asking how they can have this conversation or better equip their teams to have it.
Thanks so much, Jesse. I love how you talked about this silver tsunami, and there's a real mega trend here that you're riding. I really have 3 questions, and I'll ask them one by one, so you don't have to remember.
Thank you.
What's the value proposition at an emotional level to the farmer? What gets them to open their relatively stiff wallets to pay for something like this?
Yeah, when I talk to, and part of what Downland really thinks about this problem is we embed value-based questions and behavior change readiness in part of how we have that conversation. Today, as we've been preparing for that voice AI-enabled transcription and conversation contract, we're recording these conversations. As far as I know, we have the largest recorded database of end-of-life conversations that exists. If anyone knows of one, I would like to dig into it more, haven't found it yet. And so there's a few key motivators for people who are trying to keep their farm a farm. Family legacy and tradition is a big piece of that. A conservation mindset, particularly for those who have invested in regenerative transition already and don't want to see that work go to the wayside. There's often a spiritual, religious motivation that comes up for people in staying connected to the land and seeing it behave how nature intended for it to. And so when we have those themes be top of conversation, that's the why, and that's how you get past besides through some of the messiness and initial hurdles. And then the ease of transacting. The really difficult problem today is you have to drive into town, go sit across the desk from an attorney's. You can't start to have this conversation over the phone in the flow of what you're already doing and where you like to be.
The second part of my question is, what feedback are you getting from customers and what pivots have you had to make so far in response to that?
Yeah, the feedback I get from customers is they hear that Downland helps farmers pass down their land, work on succession, and they roll their head back and say, oh, that's so important. I'm glad you're working on that, because it's a very fractured market. You hope that the person who did it last generation, the attorney, isn't dead or retired. A lot of that tribal knowledge is being lost, and we're catching some of that to make sure that that process is easy and there can be continuity.
And then the third part is, what are the barriers that prevent, in an age of AI, anyone else from coming in, developing a platform like this and creating the same accessibility?
Yeah, the barriers in terms of technological deployment are not the hard part. The barriers are in terms of the relationship and go-to-market strategy. I think our value-based focus and behavior change focus is also a really key differentiator, because these are very human decisions that we're making, but we can make those transactions easier. As we build that database of conversations and other business plans for what different versions of the farm of the future looks like, we can also really open up innovative ways and relationships for people to keep their farm a farm as they think about what are the diversified enterprises that I need on my land to keep that going in the future. Great. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. And our last but not least company, sorry, I'm just trying to fix, is Mermaid Energy. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. If you thought you were scared before. So I'm Christy Shaw, and I am with Mermaid Energy. My background is I have a doctorate in oceanography and a master of public health. And I have spent years of post-academic life working on renewable natural gas development, and I've decided to use that time best used towards sargassum, which, if you go to the Caribbean, this is what you want to see, this is what you expect to see, this is what I want my grandchildren to see when they hopefully travel and enjoy this pristine, beautiful region. Unfortunately, we have a problem. Sargassum was introduced to the Caribbean approximately in 2010. Since that time, it has grown, I won't say quite exponentially, but it's grown in a way that we've gone from 10 million tons to 12 million tons, kind of evened out at 20 million tons a year in the ocean. And now last year it doubled to 40 million tons. This year we're on track to have 50 million tons, basically following the hurricane track. It ends up on beaches. It causes significant public health concerns for the folks that live on these islands. They are being exposed to chronic hydrogen sulfide and ammonia gases. Those are toxic gases. People have to leave their homes. We've had schools that have had to close. Women go into preterm labor from these chronic exposures. It causes neurological, cardiovascular, and respiratory problems. This is a real problem. Not only that, these islands are completely dependent on tourism. And once you start to lose your tourist population, it's very hard to get it back. And people, we're in a social community now. Everyone talks, everyone shares their pictures. It's very hard to get people back after you've lost them. And this is absolutely the worst case scenario for this region. It's also been estimated that Florida is experiencing 3.6 billion a year in everything from tourism disruption, fishery disruption, and municipalities having to clean up the sargassum on the beach. So right now, this is the solution in many parts of the Caribbean. It's manual. It is land machinery that's really hard on the beaches. And the problem is once it gets to shore, it's already decomposing at that point. The hydrogen sulfide and ammonia gases have already started to impact the communities. This is a public health issue. It's creating all sorts of harms ecologically. We need to do something with it before this point. So this is where Mermaid Energy comes in. So we are proposing to do something different from what a number of other companies are doing in this space. We are proposing to do this in a maritime base. So we are going to intercept it, process it, and convert it all when we're out at sea. So before it gets too close to the islands, we will harvest it. We will be on a platform where we can do initial dewatering and maceration, and then we can go ahead and start to take care of the issues it has, like high arsenic content. That also ends up in your water and in your sand. So we want to make sure before it gets there, we're taking care of it. We're also doing a biostimulant extraction, and we are harvesting wet alginates. The last piece of this is we push it through, and we are doing a biocrude production, which we are targeting to sell back into the islands from microgrid supplies. We would be able to produce a very significant amount of biocrude that could be used in microgrids on the resort scale. So it's really important to know that these biostimulants, these seaweeds are out in the open ocean collecting all of the things that terrestrial plants actually need. So if we take the biostimulants out of the ocean and give them to terrestrial plants, we start to actually create a more resilient agricultural situation. The materials that we're pulling out of the extracts are PFAS-free materials, and we're having multiple conversations at this moment with different offtakes. And that renewable fuel, again, helps the island communities to really successfully create an island 100% renewable transition. So we're hitting a number of major targets here, public health being an important one for me, taking care of our beaches and the ocean, incredibly important, clean materials. So thank you for being here today, and thanks for listening.
All right. Thank you for that presentation, Christy. My question is going to be primarily around the countries they're going to be working with in the Caribbeans. What are they currently doing right now to solve this issue? I know you mentioned that they're doing the old school method of shoveling and these heavy equipment. Is that the only main solution that we're seeing in today's age?
So depending on where you are seeing the harvest, so like let's say in Mexico, you've got a very placid area there for water. So a lot of those areas, if you have a resort that's right there that can afford to do the type of cleanup, you might have a situation where they're doing netting and booming with collecting it there and then bringing it. A lot of times it's either going for some sort of production or it's going to landfill. Unfortunately, with a lot of the islands, it's going to landfill still. Other places, they wait until it comes on shore entirely and then they're raking. I mean, even in Florida right now, that is the practice. They are out first thing with tractors. It disappears before anyone sees it. And so that's kind of common practice right now. So I personally think that there's a different way to do this where we're actually collecting it before it ever gets too close to the islands. The other islands, like let's say down further south into, around Barbados and Dominica, we're dealing with more high energy waters there. So that's a different type of harvest. And I think the way we handle that is we work with local fishermen who work with us because they know their waters.
I see. I have an additional follow-up question. This is probably going to be more from my knowledge, but I think you mentioned sargassum increased or started in 2010. What is the main reasons for that?
Thanks for asking that. I missed that. So there was a climate anomaly in 2010 where we had a shift in currents, and it's based upon climate change. So it As far as we know, there's some different hypotheses, but the one that's really holding is that introduced sargassum down into the Caribbean region. It now goes all the way out to Africa, follows the hurricane belt. It's been shown now that what's really driving the bus is that the overall ocean circulation has slowed, which is driving trade winds, which is driving deep ocean phosphorus, which unfortunately means this is not something that we're going to be able to turn the spigot on and off from very easily. Like I said, we've gone up to this year, I think we're going to be set for 50 million tons in the ocean, which is, by the way, 5 times the amount of plastic introduced to the ocean yearly.
Thank you so much. This was very interesting. I had no idea that it was so toxic, considering how much is in Cancun.
I'm sorry.
So my question, do you have an MVP built yet?
So what we're actually wanting to do, and I've done this specifically, I want to take technology that is known. There's a whole unknown to the fact that there's this much seaweed out in the ocean and how, so I am taking known technology, known extractions for biostimulants, and we're working with biostimulant offtakes that, they can tell me, we want this spec. We're going to meet that spec. Same thing for the biopolymers that we can extract. It's a known technology. And then the last piece, hydrothermal liquefaction, we've worked with DOE on it. So, they use that now currently. We're matching to spec for like the type and the size of reactor we can buy. So nothing is new on this ship. And that makes it not so exciting, but at the same time, we know we can actually deploy it.
And what about the technology to just extract?
So for the technology to extract, it's not super complex. You can use household chemicals like lemons and sodium hydroxide, so baking soda, to do some of these extractions. So it's actually incredibly safe to be doing out on the ocean as well.
But have you built it yet? Oh, sorry. That's my question.
No. No, we have not built any of this because right now where we're at is getting the specs for where we need to, what our targets are that we need to hit. From there, we'll be able to say, okay, this is the size that we need. Here's how much, input we're going to need for chemicals or hot water or what have you. And then we're going to work with naval architecture to figure out exactly what that looks like to put on a ship. Sorry about that.
You were correct that it'd be another scary moment for us. Thank you. All near and dear to my heart, but I think it's actually much greater than the area that you said geographically. I see it all the way up the coast. I have a home in Maine, and we have this same issue there. And I understand that the technologies exist that you can take off the shelf and apply to this business. Is your thesis that you can make the economics work to do this without having to create yet more cost, that you can self-sustain this business?
Yes. So I spent about 10 years in renewable natural gas development, and I learned a lot of lessons. So one of the first lessons is it has to be able to pay for itself without any additionalities and at base cost. So any of the offtakes here, or we are talking about, this is a super high level, there's nothing premium about what we're going to be paid, including in the diesel, fossil fuel prices. So what we've designed is something that will basically pay itself back. And I'm going to butcher how I say this because I am not a financial, the EBITDA, a 55% at the very base. We can also, if we were getting a slightly more, we could actually have one of these paid off, which are about 27 million to be full in about a year. And then we can start to stack our, so we're planning to process 50,000 tons per module. And then we can stack those and maybe have 2 of those modules operating on any one small island, larger islands. And the main important thing here is we want to be able to harvest and process an amount that is meaningful for public health. So if 10% of what's out in the open ocean is what is actually coming into the islands, we want to have a harvest and processing situation that is actually able to say, we have 100,000 tons coming in this year. We have 2 modules that are ready to deploy, and they're also able to move around and follow the seaweed where it's going, so we're not locked down on any one site.
2 sort of follow-up questions are related, but when you mentioned that this is non-PFAS, it's a big deal. You mentioned it could be used as a fertilizer, it sounds like, which currently most land applied material has PFAS all in it. Another scary topic. But so I'm curious: does this for the fertilizer component? Are you still processing that into a biofuel, or is that a separate process?
So for the fertilizer, so none of these are exclusive one of another. So it's part of the cascade. So the first piece we take out of it is the biostimulant, and that can be used for agriculture. It actually helps to offset some of the nitrogen use as well. Then you have the next process, and then the biofuels at the end. So we don't have to give up one for the other.
And the fishing industry, you're going to want to collaborate with them. Yeah.
No, you're good. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry.
Wow, let's do another round of applause over there for all four. I mean, we have ag tech, ocean tech, energy tech, circular economy, and plastics. I mean, we're touching all industries. It's not just wind and solar. And I think it's getting a little hot in here, you know. Shout out to Nelly, and I don't mean Nelly or global warming. I mean, there's a lot of competition. So, judges, you guys did a great job. We have 4 amazing innovators. You guys now have some time to figure out who our winners are going to be. Everybody else, pick your favorite company. I think they're looking for money. Any industry players out there, I think you guys got some great companies to partner with. So, we'll be right back after the judges come up with our winner of the 2026 EarthX Climate Tech Prize winner. Thank you. Welcome back to Dallas, Texas at EarthX 2026 for the 2026 Climate Tech Prize Finals. Judges, you guys took a lot of time. It means there were a lot of good companies. Do we have a consensus? All right. First, before we announce the winner, I'm going to tell you a little story and just delay the process a little further. But first, I actually do want to do a special thank you to Mass Challenge for your sponsorship. EarthX is a nonprofit, and we are able to do our programs thanks to all the sponsors we have here. There's a lot of great sponsors for EarthX and the eCapital Summit, so just a thank you for everything. And also thank you to all of you guys for being here today and supporting Grade 4 entrepreneurs. It is a challenge to do it. They have time, grit. They sacrifice family time. They sacrifice time from other professional opportunities because they're not just trying to make money and trying to build a business. They're actually improving the world. So thank you to our 4 entrepreneurs. I'm actually going to call you guys up to come up on stage. And one by one, as they come up, let's please give them an extra round of applause. So first, from Austin, Texas, ATS Energy, Jonathan Candy. Let's invite from San Diego, California, Ravi Chalwa from Chakra TechWorks. From Austin, Texas, Jesse Roche from Downland. And from the land of crab cakes and football, Easton, Maryland, Christy Shaw from Mermaid Energy. Let's do one more round of applause for these 4 entrepreneurs. And now the moment that we've been waiting for. The winner of the 2026 EarthX Climate Tech Prize Finals is Chakra Tech. Congratulations. Thank you, everybody. That concludes the 2026 EarthX Climate Tech Prize and the 2026 eCapital Summit. We'll see you next year in April. Thank you, guys.